Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday Night Smite podcast. The podcast that I will be doing today instead of watching my team, my country, potentially qualify for the FIFA World Cup. This is a great something that I'm giving up, man.
Oh,
Feel bad
you.
about yourself. Yeah. Anyway, my name is the Robbie Dog. I'm here today with Sabo, and we're bringing you episode 20 of the podcast. And obviously this week we're going to discuss week 5 of the SPL, and we're going to do a quick preview to the Gauntlet that is going to be happening this weekend already. So yeah, they're cramming a lot of stuff into the last 2 weeks basically. So yeah. Anyway, Sabo, do you have anything to say right now? How was your week?
Rainy. Well, I mean, we have hurricanes off the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, and I'm getting enough rain here that it's really causing my week to be really, you know.
Well, it might surprise you, but we do not get too many hurricanes in Switzerland, so I really do not know. But we do have rain.
Well, we have rain,
Yeah.
but no soccer team, I guess, or no football team, I guess.
Well, depends on what type of football you're referring to.
What we here in America refer to as soccer, or what you would refer to as football.
Yeah. Hey, they might qualify.
Real football.
Man.
Real football. When's the last time they qualified? Like,
No, they were. I think they were there in 2014. Not 14. I think 10. They're not bad. Like Switzerland's football team's not bad, but that's really besides the point right now. And I just want to say, just because you insulted them, they're playing against the European champions right now. So if they don't make it, it's no shame, man. Just wanted to have that out there.
all right, you keep telling yourself that. But, hey, whatever makes you sleep better at night, I guess.
Yeah. I wanted to get a dig at NA in there, but I can't think of one right now. So yeah. Let's not talk about NA, let's talk about EU, because they're, once again, the region that happened first on Thursday and obviously happens first on the weekend as well, on Saturday. And yeah, what are the big things that happened in EU this week?
Well, I think the biggest thing, or the biggest storyline we have, is Obey 2-0ing Dignitas in the final set of European Smite this weekend.
Yeah, but they still did not manage to get a perfect split. No one's getting a perfect split.
No, we have one-loss teams in both regions. But Obey, the difference, Obey really was the only team that beat their biggest competition in their, 2-0 their biggest competition in their region.
Yeah, and,
eUnited was not able to do that. So
yeah, we'll get to that in a bit as well.
Obey might be the best team in the world. We'll have to see who wins super regionals and worlds.
Yeah,
but Obey is definitely a top team right now.
Yeah,
I think the question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting matchup between those two teams, right? Because if you look at it historically, even now that Dig has won a split LAN in the summer, they've never actually beaten this Obey roster, especially not now that they've brought in Celia instead of for Maniac. And well, it seems to be, like we talked about already in the summer, it seems to be sort of the kryptonite of Dig.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, they lose. Obey beat them in the spring, and then beat them again in the spring finals. a best of 5, I believe. It was what, 3-1 or was it 3-2?
I think so, yeah. I think 3-1. But I don't
And
remember
then
exactly.
Obey beat them in the summer, right? They 2-0 them in the summer. They didn't play at DreamHack. Obey got eliminated by Rival, who eventually lost to Dignitas. And now Obey 2-0 Dignitas again. So,
yeah,
Kryptonite's a good word for it because I think they've, multiple opportunities and they only have 2 wins against this team. And it wasn't an actual victory. It was 2 out of 5 games. Like, Obey still got the better of them in the end. So.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing that I think is going to be relevant on LAN because we know that Dig has looked better on LAN, I'd say, overall than they do online, right? Even though in the summer they had that dominant online split as well, but then on LAN they really seem to turn it up, right? 3-0ing Energy, for instance, and obviously also beating Rival in the finals. So that's what I think I'm looking forward to most is that we're potentially going to get this this matchup as well at Super Regionals if both teams either drop down into the wildcard bracket or if they both make it through to the finals of the EU Regionals. And yeah, what?
Realistically, these two should be at the at the finals of Super Regional for the Europe region. Dignitas does have to play Rival again in the first round, but all goes as expected. These 2 teams are the best 2 teams in Europe, though it's not as big of a gap between those 2 teams and the rest of Europe as it is between Luminosity and eUnited and the rest of North America. All realistically, we should see these 2 match up again at the European finals.
Yeah, I think that's a likely matchup that we're going to end up seeing. Just as you said, because Dig is playing Rival, which I think would have potentially an advantage against Obey based on what we've seen from them at Summer at DreamHack Valencia as well. But obviously they lost to Dig in the finals. It was a close affair, and Rival, even though they haven't looked good this split online, they're always a real threat at LAN, which I think could cause a lot of issues for Dig there because Dig has not looked as pristine in this fall split than they have in the summer still overall. So those are matchups that I'm really looking forward to anyway. The matchups that we're going to see at Super Regionals, and yeah, as we've hinted at already, or I guess Rival managed to qualify, and the team that managed to qualify next to them as well was Elevate. So what is there to say about both of those teams as well?
Well, Elevate did what they needed to. They found they didn't have to 2-0 Valence. All they had to do was find 1 win, and they were able to find that 1 win this weekend against Valence. They did, and are the only team to have beat Obey this split. Game 1 on Thursday against Obey was kind of, they won the draft and just outdrafted Obey and their team comp. They handled Obey in Game 1 because of their team comp. Rival, on the other hand, they played on Thursday. They 2-0 Burrito, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then all they had to do from there was split with Energy.
Well, we could have still had the circumstances where it wouldn't have... Oh, no, we couldn't have. Right, you're right. I'm not saying anything.
Rival 2-0 Valence, right? That's why they're ahead of Valence right now. That's why they're going into Super Regionals and not...
No. So Rival, they 2-0'd Elevate, right? I think. I'm almost certain they 2-0'd Elevate. That's why they are ahead of them in the standings as well. Because they both are sitting at 9 points, but Rival obviously has the head-to-head in that case. And yeah, yes. They managed to find a 2-0 over Burrito this week on Thursday, and then they split with Energy on Saturday as well.
Energy only finished with 7 points, and Valence only finished with 8 points.
Yeah.
So that's why we see Rival and Elevate making it here. Rival, I'll give them credit. They had a rough split, but they did a lot like they did in the summer split. They did what they had to do to get to the land. And we've already said this. We know what this team can do on land. Ice Baby and Wolfie are a lot better on land than they are on line. Death Walker seems to pull stuff out of his hat that nobody knows is a thing, like Airy solo, Gep solo, like what's next, maybe, I don't know, Raijin solo or something.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless, man.
But Rival is a lot better team on land than they are off online, and I think the key for Elevate in their matchup against Obey at Super Regionals is whether they can outdraft Obey like they did in Game 1 on Thursday. Because playing Obey in a straight up meta picks versus meta picks, normal team comp against normal team comp, I don't think Elevate has a shot against Obey. I don't want to say you have to pull out some jank picks, but you got to pull out something weird, like something maybe not like Jean Kui support weird. Shout out to Big Man Ting, but you got to throw something at Obey that they're not quite prepared for, and they did that in Game 1 on Thursday, and then in Game 2, like they were forced. Actually, Obey forced them back into a normal team comp, and they were able. Obey just put it on them, and so the key in both sets for me at Super Regionals is what picks can these lower seeding teams, Rival and Elevate, pull out that throws Dignitas and Obey off their game.
Yeah, I think especially against Obey, this is very important because of how solid as a team they are, right? You will rarely see them just being completely out of a match from like minute 5 forwards, and I think this match against Elevate was the closest to that we actually saw since a long time, since probably DreamHack. Which is obviously very impressive, right? They only lost that one match, obviously, of course, and I think, yeah, it comes down to picks, and it comes down to you being able to, as you said, just run something that they're not prepared for, because if Obey is prepared for what you're doing, I think they're going to find a way to counter it, and I think Obey as a team is that good, is good enough that they can adapt to curveballs that are thrown at them if they are expecting them, and if they have dealt with them before, and if they have a strategy laid out for how to deal with them.
How can they adapt without adapting?
What?
So how can they adapt without adapting? Adapting is not on this team.
See, Twig is a lot more adaptable than adapting. You know, a Twig can bend.
Twig can bend it like what? Bend it like Beckel? Don't say that again.
No.
Yeah,
no,
but
Twig is flexible, you know, just like
Twig
Captain Twig.
Yeah, Twig is definitely flexible. We've got proof of that already.
Yeah. Even though he played Rat both games.
Yeah,
against Elevate, but in the set against Dig, you know, things were a bit different.
Hey!
I hope we see more Kuzbo, just because of that.
Honest, I liked the jungle, but when the casters started, hey! I wanted to turn off the stream. I was like, I'm done.
No, I loved it, man. I thought it was hilarious. But yeah, Twig played Kuzenbo Jungle, in case you hadn't heard about it, our viewers out there.
And I believe somebody killed themselves on Twig, wasn't it? Who was it that killed himself? Was it QO or Zyros? or zeros.
Wait, no, that was in a different set. Someone killed himself in a different set against someone.
Oh! It was it Cryptic when Weekend played it as well? Weekend
Might
played
have been,
Kuzenbo
yeah.
Jungle.
Not sure.
And I think the Scylla ult ended up killing Shadow Chair, his own ult.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that was great.
that was about the only highlight from that match, from that game, that tiebreaker game. Oh, other than Dodgy.
Wait, Scylla
Cycle's been
wasn't
running
played in the
Dodgy for the first
tiebreaker
time.
game. Who played Kuzenbo as well? Was it Aurora? I thought it was a Kuzenbo jungle that someone killed themselves on.
I thought it was too, and the only other Kuzo jungle we saw was the Weekend game.
Has Twig played it before?
No, that was the first. Hold on, let's look this up. Okay.
This is... I need to know this.
Trifecta versus Space Station. Okay. Aurora did not. Okay, Aurora did not play Kuzenbo. ALB versus.
It must have been ALG, like honestly. Someone else played him, apparently.
Regents versus Cryptic tiebreaker. Huh.
It happened. I know it happened. That is the main thing here. Scylla killed herself on a Kuzenbo.
Alright, that's beside the point.
Yeah.
Let's just move on.
The point being, Kuzenbo jungle. I love it, man. The casting and the pick itself. I think it's such a Twig pick, you know.
It does seem like a Twig pick, yes.
Yeah, just because why would you play Kuzenbo jungle?
If there's two people that would run Kuzenbo jungle before this weekend, and they both played it this weekend.
Yeah, Twig and Weekend.
Twig and Weekend, exactly. They're the only two that's going to play Kuzenbo jungle. Weekend played Kumbhakarna jungle and Capri jungle. Let's not forget about that.
Yeah, but why would you not pick any of those instead of Kuzenbo still?
The lows, maybe? Playing the lows. Because really, in all honesty, Allegiance probably said, screw it. We don't care about the tiebreaker. Let's just have some fun.
See, I'm also pretty sure that Obey wasn't giving it their all in that second match against Dig, because they obviously had already lost the game that split, so they couldn't have gone with a perfect record. And they were already guaranteed for first seed at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, still won the game of it though.
We didn't see the jank comps, the weird comps that we predicted last week. If some of these sets were already over and everything was already decided, but we still got to see some fun picks. So, Kuzenbo jungle twice. We got to see Dodgy in the solo lane. Bracken jungle made it back in that tiebreaker.
Oh god, I just love Twig right now. Twig is the best, man.
Yeah, definitely. He might be the best jungler in the world right now.
Yeah, I think that's a discussion worth having, right? With adapting having fallen off as much as he has, and Cubo not looking as solid as he's usually done, and Twig.
Cubo is a great jungler, except for when they play Obey.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Twig, like in the head-to-head matchup between Twig and Cubo, Twig always seems to find a way to get ahead of Cuvo and really force the issue. So Twig is definitely the best jungler in EU, in my opinion. I think the only real competition he has for best jungler in the world might be Mask. And before this weekend, I would have said Scream, but Mask really put Scream on the back foot this weekend. So
Yeah, again, we're going to talk about that in a while. You really want to jump ahead to the NA side, don't you?
I really do. I've been thinking about that LGE United split since it happened.
See, I've been thinking about the Obey Dig 2-0 and the hey!
You know, enough jokes aside. Jesus, this just in. Roby is an asshole, and I'll no longer be working with him anymore.
Hey, you did one as well, please, man. If you get your hey, I get mine.
Mine was at the beginning, and it made fun of the situation. Now you're just doing it to annoy me.
No, I'm still making fun of the situation because I think the situation's absolutely hilarious, man. But yeah, I think that's the main point to summarize is Obey basically stomped Dig. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
And they did it with Cruisenbow Jungle. And Emilsi went 0-0 and 30.
Yeah, I saw that, and Game 2, Zelia.
Yeah.
He went 11-0 in on Kukulkan solo.
See,
that's impressive.
I think he got at least 4 of those kills from Ganesh passive, man. Otherwise, Emilsi would have had the same slash line as him.
Yeah, that's true. So. But, was it Ron, Jobber, or Young Link that said that Zelia might have the best Kukulkan in the league right now?
I am not sure, honestly. It would have been at the second half of the analyst desk, right? So in the middle portion of it.
Yeah.
If it was Ron Chobert. So I think it was probably Young Link in that case.
Yeah, I think it might have been Young Link, yeah. And whether you agree with that or not, he is a good Kukulkan. For my money, probably the best Kukulkan still Benji. But that Benji might be the best solo laner in the world, so that's not really. It'd be a fun thing to see Obey versus eUnited and see who gets Kukulkan. They've been playing better.
Yeah. Hey, we might if both of them lose their sets.
Or they meet up at Worlds.
Yeah, but we would have to wait a long time for that. It's gonna be a long time between Super Regionals and Worlds, man.
I don't think Super Regionals is at the end of the month, right? So it's
it's at the start of November.
No, yeah, we got November, December, and the first week of January before Worlds. So we got a 2.5 month break there before we get to see it. Yeah, let's hope they don't lose at Super Regionals. I'm hoping neither teams lose at Super Regionals. Because it'd be a shame if neither of them are at Worlds.
Yeah, totally. But, well, it would depend if they got upset, right, and just played under their level. If that would be a shame, if that happened, if they didn't make it because they just didn't perform that one weekend of the entire year. If someone else actually... What?
Oh, you heard that, huh?
Orbit?
You heard that, huh?
Did you say Orbit?
Homie fight!
Oh, I thought you were saying Orbit. But yeah, like it's not
Good
going to be a
point.
surprise if Homie doesn't perform. We've talked about this already. Also, it is still NA. Stop trying to switch to NA. It's EU time right now.
EU's boring. Come on, man.
No, it's
I mean,
not.
we've pretty much covered everything we can say about EU this week.
No, there's a lot of sets left that we didn't talk about, but we don't have to all that much. Well, what else happened? Let's just quickly go over the other sets, right? Obviously, we haven't talked much about Rival. Rival, what they did... Well, we have. Damn it. I'm an idiot.
Ravel to Burrito, and then they split with Energy. We've covered that.
Talking about Energy real quick. That game one between the set, and in the set between them and Rival was extremely dominant from them. That is like the prime Energy that if we saw that from them every game, if they had that consistency, they would still be easily a contender for the World Championship and Super Regionals.
Well, you can't really count Energy out because Raffer posted on Twitter that he feels that this team can still win a third world champion. They just had to clean some things up, and yes, they can still win a third title. But he's right. There's some stuff they got to clean up. In my opinion, there's a lot of crap they have to clean up.
Yeah. So I just want to say if they've been cleaning for now like 3/4 of a year, they're taking a very long time to clean things up.
Yeah. In my opinion, mostly it's adapting right now.
Yeah.
He's got to find himself again, or this team is not going to make it out of Gauntlet. Honesty.
Yeah, but I wonder though.
I mean, they got they have at least 4 games in the Gauntlet because they have at least 2 games in the Gauntlet, right? Because they are 6th seed. If they get too old by the person underneath them, then that's only 2 games they're going to play.
Yeah.
But if they win, they have to at least play 4 games.
Yeah.
To make it to Super Regionals.
So.
And they split with Valence at the beginning of the split.
Yeah, I think one thing I want to say real quick is, or I have 2 questions for you really. Do you think there is a reasonable way out for a reasonable way that adapting comes back and starts performing again like the adapting we saw in the summer without there being a big meta change to where the junglers largely shift away from these more utility picks that we've seen out of other EU junglers, right? Looking at Twig, most specifically with the Ratatosker, with the Kuzenbo. Or do you think adapting really needs a change for him to be able to really come back? Can he play that same utility role that a guy like Twig plays?
Well, I thought said it this way: the best teams create their own meta, right? The teams that are so good and win every week create their own meta. Now the meta right now is trending towards that utility jungle pick, and it's hurting adapting. Why not just start putting high pressure junglers on, put adapting on these high pressure junglers that he's so good on, and he was so good on for 2.5 or almost 2 seasons. Like, create your own meta and let him put him on something that he can just dominate on, and don't make him play the utility Circuit where you're building Mystical Mail on Circuit. Put him on Mercury and let him build triple crit and let him just run through people. Like, I don't think we see the adapting that we're used to seeing unless they force or they start playing a little bit more to their playstyle and getting away from the current meta. I want to see adapting on high pressure junglers. Let him play the Thor. Let him play the Kamazots or the Hunbath or something like the Fenrir. Let him play Fenrir. He's one of his best games I've ever seen him play was on the Fenrir, and that was Game 5 against Cloud9 at the Season 2 semifinals.
Yeah, it's crazy with adapting that you can talk about how many amazing picks he has, how many gods he can play to this amazing level, but right now he's not picking them and he's not delivering on them to the level that you need from him, right? So, again, you said it right. Where's the Fenrir? Where is the Thor? What is happening? And yeah, I think you make a good point there, honestly. I think they need a meta change, but if they are creative enough and if they practice it hard enough, they can force it themselves. And if other teams are forced to adapt to that and try to beat Energy at their own game, they're going to have a tough time, because if adapting goes back to a level where he can pop off and where he can carry games and where he can do it consistently, most importantly, then yeah, it's going to be a hard team to beat. And the other question I would have had for you, which I probably forgot now, is how do you see their chances of making it through the gauntlet, actually, over the likes of Valent Squad and over the likes of the Challenger team, which I don't really know which one it is right now, and the bottom two SPL teams in Burrito and the Poppies?
Well, if they play right, and I mean really play to their strengths, and maybe adapting doesn't have to go and become that old adapting again, they're easily the best team in the gauntlet. Even better than Valence, who is ahead of them. But if they continue to struggle and we see them perform like they did in the Fall Split, I don't believe they get past Valence. I think Valence takes the EU Gauntlet victory over Energy. But again, if we see a little glimpse of the old Energy or the Energy that played against who was it they 2-0'd this split?
Let me check.
Just Elevate? Was it just Elevate that they 2-0'd? No, Elevate 2-0'd
They
them.
got 2-0'd by Elevate. Yeah. They probably 2-0'd Poppies, I guess, because, they're the Poppies. Yeah, they 2-0'd Poppies. So nothing too impressive, right?
Okay. If we see the team that took a game off of Dignitas, because they split with Dig, remember that?
Or the game one rival Energy.
Yeah, if we see that Energy, they easily come out of the gauntlet as the gauntlet winners, the wild card team for Super Regionals.
Yeah.
If we see the Energy that split with Burrito, however, or got 2-0'd by Elevate, yeah, there's chalk it up to Energy not making it to Worlds, because it's over if we don't see the team we expect we're hoping to see in the gauntlet.
Yeah.
I don't think they can play like they did when they split with Burrito and expect to win the gauntlet.
Yeah, they're gonna have a hard time unless Valence also heavily underperforms, and they're both inconsistent teams, right? There's a chance that Valence doesn't catch a good day either, but overall, I think it could be hard for Energy to find the 4 games that they need, right? To have 4 games out of a maximum of 6 where they can manage to have adapting play well and challenge the other team, right? Because if Burrito comes up, they are the 7th seed, right?
Burritos the 8th seed. The Puppies are the 7th.
Oh, so Puppies won the tiebreaker. I was remembering that wrong. Yeah. Yeah,
I'm just going by the final standings that they had on Smite
I
game.
checked the set. They won the tiebreaker.
Okay.
So yeah, I think if those teams, if we've seen Burrito take a game from them this split, right? If that happens again, then they're going to be under pressure already, and we know that Energy is not a team that necessarily crumbles under pressure, but the question is still, is Adapting going to be able to show up in a good form for 4 out of those 6 games that they might have to play if they want to go through? And that's the biggest worry I have for this team. Otherwise, I think they have the potential, or they have the what it takes to beat Valence, right? It was already close between the two of them this split, and we talked a lot about how poor Energy looked with how poor Adapting looked, and Valence overall, considering they only have one more point, didn't look too much better, I'd say. So is this? I think they have a good chance at still winning over them, but Adapting does need to show up, and that is the big question mark that I have about this set. But yeah, that's already really going into the Gauntlet preview, which we're going to do in a bit more detail, honestly, a bit later on. So I think that wraps up the NA side for this week 5. Do you want to move on? I bet you want to move on.
Oh, yeah. You're talking to me. All right. Yeah.
Who else would I be talking to?
To yourself? I don't know.
I don't talk to myself.
I do.
Well, that's your problem, man. Anyway, the NA side. Well, you're the NA guy, so tell me what happened.
Well, we had like we did in Europe. We had number 1 versus number 2 this week, and it was a very highly anticipated matchup. Everybody was looking forward to it. eUnited had managed to 2-0 Vigilant on Thursday, and they were going into this with no losses. LG had one. It was the first time we've seen a matchup this late in a split between a 1-loss team and an undefeated team. And it lived up to the hype for the most part. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was a little ticked off in game 1 by eUnited because, and we'll get to the picks and bans in a moment. Problem I saw in that game 1 again, in that set, was that LG. I talked about it at the end of last week's episode. LG bled them dry, slowly bled out, and took multiple speed buffs from Scream. Invaded, kept invading their jungle, putting and it got to a point where eUnited was not comfortable fighting over any objective at all. And so LG Luminosity bled them dry, bled them out, and by the time it got to a late game where eUnited's composition really started to come online, they were too far behind. And that's what was upsetting me in game 1, that eUnited was not taking these fights, because we both know that if you want to win a game where you're losing terribly, you have to say enough is enough and take a fight. Because if you don't, you don't necessarily have to win the fight. Like if you take the fight on hopes that you can win the fight. You know, if you win it, yeah, you can stall out the matchup and hopefully, get a little bit more out of your comp and turn it into a late game just stomp. If you lose the fight, however, what realistically are you losing? Like if you continue to let the team take objectives uncontested, you've already lost the match because they're just going to what happened is happened. Like they just got to a point where their league was too big for eUnited to fight, and I wanted to see probably wanted to see that second Gold Fury that LG had done. LG had taken right in front of eUnited. I'm thinking that's probably where eUnited should have stood up and fought. Because, like I said, if you lose that fight, you're already losing the game anyway. So take a chance and try to get back into the game. But they never really did.
Yeah, I can understand that idea, right? And it would have definitely made a bit more sense, I think, than what they really tried to do. What I just don't get overall is the way they drafted the comp, or I think that this comp that they drafted isn't really the optimal thing for them to run. Right, they had pressure in the solo side, or they had good picks there at least. I think they still got out pressured a bit at the very beginning of the game, right?
Yeah, there are multiple invades on Scream speed buff. Really hurt Scream, put Benenu out of position. That's why we saw him start 0-4 instead of what we're used to seeing him start, because he's been a really good mid laner for him and really hasn't cost his team, hasn't really cost eUnited too much. He's been really solid. It's been really, he's been a great mid lane pickup for them. But most of that has to do with Scream getting off to a great start, and Scream wasn't able to get off to a great start. So we saw the multiple invades from Luminosity not only hurt Scream, but hurt Venenu as well. So
yeah. And see, the issue I have with the comp is they really try to bank on that solo and jungle synergy, or that solo and jungle combination between the Circuit and the RTO, in order to get them pressure early game, in order to have their carries last long into the late game where they would start to come online, right? They had Kronos mid and Artemis ADC. Those are both sort of hyper carries, and if you get them to late game while you keep them safe by sort of pushing for things on the other sides of the map or in other parts of the map, then it can work. This is a type of comp that can work, but you're really putting all of your eggs into one basket, and they might have underestimated what LG would be able to bring, right? And I think that's what really cost them in that match, is they let the pressure go away on the solo side, and so the thing that their comp was supposed to do with them having the hyper carries and trying to get them online didn't work, and instead they just got slowly run over by this LG roster that just ended up scaling them just because they were getting that much more farm.
Well, my problem with the picks and bans are not. I don't like the Artemis pick. Let's put that out there first. Don't like the Artemis pick.
Yeah. I think Artemis is a risky pick to run into a Ratatosker, right? Because if he jumps on you, your only real defense mechanism to get away from him is going to be your ult, and it's too easily countered by the rest of his team, right? They can still go in with a lot of their innate CC immunity. Barra can just ult over it and try to kill you that way with the Chingwei. Bass can go into his own ult, not get stunned, and just blow you up with the ton of damage that he has. And Jeff obviously can just shield someone out of it as well.
Yeah, the Jingwei, her mobility, her rotation. That's where I don't like the Artemis pick. The Ratatasker pick. Yeah, he's landing on you. He's knocking you up. Panda Cat actually went blink instead of like a beads or something that keeps him out of that knockup. But with the ultimate, being able to stun the Ratatasker and let the Artemis get away, you're right. It's too easily countered by the rest of the team. The problem I have with the Artemis is that in just the solo matchup between Artemis and Jingwei that we saw, if Artemis doesn't kill Jingwei is going to get pressure in that lane just because of her passive, allowing her to get back to lane quickly. And if you force him out and don't kill him, and you're not even getting a wave into the tower before she's back. Whereas if she forces you out and you have to back, you got to walk all the way because you have no movement speed or movement ability in your kit. And so just by the matchup alone, the high pressure that Jingwei brings, I don't like Artemis into that pick.
Yeah, I can understand that reasoning as well.
I like the Chronos pick. I do like the Chronos pick. What I have a problem with is the Terra second pick. Let me explain. Let me explain.
Please do.
LG goes Ratatasker first pick, and eUnited respond with RDO and Terra. Now, Jeff Henley loves Terra. And he's probably going to pick up Terra. That's if Terra's available, he's going to take it. But I don't think Terra's a second pick right now. I don't. Yes, the ultimate is still game changing and it's one of the best ultimates in the game. But with the change from a root to a slow, you can draft around that. You don't necessarily have to pick her up in that spot. LG follows up the Terra pick with Raijin and Jingwei. So Ratatasker, Raijin, and Jingwei, high pressure gods. You're already putting yourself behind. Unless you can draft correctly. And they didn't draft correctly after that. I think if you're going that route, I would have liked to seen that Aphrodite other than the Chronos. Because what hurts high pressure comps the most is if you can out-sustain their damage and keep yourself in the fight after all their abilities are gone. She has their ult immune the rat knockup. She can pretty much clear the wave even with Raijin. Well, Raijin gets it at level 2. She needs like a 3rd level, but she can easily keep up with the Raijin. And, with no Odin to have to worry about and the Serket on her side, what really shuts her down is pretty much, just the Jingwei jumping on her. So I would, if you're going to go with the RDO Terra, I would have liked to seen the Aphrodite other than the Chronos. But I think if you pick up, maybe if you take Raijin or Jingwei in that second pick, and LG responds with Terra, and let's say Jingwei because eUnited picks up the Raijin, and we know Venenu has a good Raijin. You've automatically got early to mid game pressure right there with the Raijin, and you're not solely dependent on getting to the extreme late game.
Yeah.
So I think they lost in the picks and bans, and I think they could have just let the Terra through instead of picking it up for Polar Bear Mike. Well, I do. I think, like I said, I think Terra is a great pick. I just don't know if picking her that early and keeping her away from Jeff Henley, which I think was the goal there, was really something that they had to do, because I don't see her as a must-have pick right now anymore.
Well, I still like her, right? I think considering the circumstances, she was probably one of the best options available. The Fafnir would have been another one that they could have gone with, since they already had 1.5 basic attackers, right, in Kronos and Artemis. But yeah, I get where you're coming from. I don't think her slow being countered was the real issue, right? They didn't have any real innate counters to slows in their team outside of the gap shield cleanse, where you can argue, do you really want to use that on a slow? The thing that I'm a bit more critical of overall is just the Kronos mid, right? Because with how the meta has shaped up and with what gods are really favored right now, I think running Kronos mid's always going to be a dangerous thing to do. And if you're up with a Kronos against a Raijin, it can be tough. You really need your jungle to be ahead, which then ended up not being the case. I think it's a combination of both factors, them being outplayed in the actual game itself and them not drafting perfectly, right? I don't think the draft is all that terrible. I think the Artemis is questionable. I think the Kronos is questionable. Outside of that, I don't have an issue with it. And I can see how either of those picks would work if they didn't screw up inside the actual game itself. So I don't have too much of an issue with a draft. I have more of an issue with them, or well, I don't have an issue with them screwing up in the game because I'm not really biased towards them. I'm just saying I think the issue with why they lost was more due to them misplaying the early game on the solo lane side and them just getting invaded and getting shut down.
Well, where they really lost the early game was the mental pressure from Raijin and that really weird start in the solo lane. That the pressure from Raijin in the mid allowed that invade onto the speed buff, the multiple invades onto the Scream speed buff. And I think if you don't have the Kronos there, if you have somebody who can match Raijin's pressure, I think that switches. I think it totally switches that around. If you can match pressure with Raijin, you know you're not in that spot where it's all of a sudden 4-man invade on the speed buff, and that's a bad fight for you because Kronos, not a whole lot of early damage. Serket's really, she's good, but really doesn't excel in team fights. She really excels at picking people off.
Yeah.
And then the Artio and the Terra, like it was a bad situation because they got pressure in mid. I think the rough start in solo lane is recoverable, and you get around that if they don't have the pressure in the mid like they did with the Raijin. And this is why I say I have a problem with the Terra pick. It's just picking her second is where I have the problem with. Because by picking her second, you give LG the option to pick Raijin and Bing Wei. Hou Yi was already banned out. And so the pressure from that duo lane is already like Jingwei is the second, that's the second most valued pick in that ADC role right now is the Jingwei. Like, do you agree? Like,
yeah, I think it's
Hou Yi. It's basically Hou Yi and Jingwei. Those are the picks that you want. If you can't get either of those two, then you go to like the AMC or the Rob or somebody else.
Or Scotty as well.
Or Scotty. Yeah, Scotty.
Yeah, I think those. Yeah, I think you can make the point that those two, Chengwei and Hou Yi, are really the top two right now. And yeah,
and I think
I understand where you're coming from.
by picking Terra in that second spot, when Raijin and Jingwei are up, you're just giving more valued picks right now to LG. I would have valued Raijin or Jingwei over the Terra. more if it was me because of the pressure that they create. But you take the Terra for your front line, and your back line is hurt because of it.
Yeah.
So save the Terra for a little bit later in the draft, or just give her to Jeff, because you got good Nash, you got Fafnir, you got Sylvanas and Geb, all are good picks, and that's all, or in that support role right now. Terra is not a must-have. Terra is a great pick, but she's not a must-have. I think Raijin and Jingwei, if Hou Yi is banned, which he was, become top picks because of the pressure they create. And we know how valuable early pressure is in this meta.
Yeah, like we said, it really won LG the game in this instance, so it's definitely something that is immensely valuable. And yeah, I think outside of that, it was still a very impressive game by LG overall, right? Still getting those in-wins off, even though you're against a comp that is as good early, I'd say, as a Circuit RTO is very impressive to me. And yeah. And yeah, I understand what you're saying when you say that the Terra second pick is not worth it purely because of what you give up for it, right? Obviously, the Rat first, I think, was a bit of a curveball that was thrown at them. They were probably expecting the Terra pick out of them, potentially, or they were expecting the RTO, and they would have just gone with the other one. And then just picked up something like a Raijin to go with it, or something like a Qingwei to go with it, right? And I think LG picking the Rat first really threw them a curveball, because at that point in time, what do? You can either go for those two Guardians that are so high priority in RTO and Terra and just get them both, or you give one up to the other team. And is that a good idea? Is it a better idea than to draft a warrior, a mage instead, the Raijin instead? In this case, probably was, yeah. But in other cases, it might not have been.
Yeah, LG definitely won the draft, and their draft is what allowed them to win the game. The Ratatasker first pick was kind of a curveball, I think, that eUnited wasn't expecting. They had left RDO open, and so they were probably expecting LG to take the RDO.
Yeah.
And so when they picked the Ratatasker, they felt like, wow, we're going to get RDO and Terra. Like, how can we pass that up? But you gotta remember who else is on the board, and when you give up the two high pressure picks of Raijin and Jingwei, and you pick Kronos and Artemis in response, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah.
So if you're picking up Terra in that second spot, it's okay to pick up Circuit in that third spot before the next picks and bans. But as soon as picks and bans are over, pick somebody other than Kronos, because Artemis was the last pick. Kronos was the fourth pick. Doesn't necessarily have to be the Aphrodite, though. I think the Aphrodite would have been a great pick into the Raijin, especially with Circuit on your team. You could have banned out Odin instead of banning out like Fafnir or whoever it was else they banned. I think it was
they banned Fafnir and Kabrakan in the second phase.
They banned out the Kabrakan. Why ban out the Kabrakan? I don't know what they were thinking, but like you pick up the Aphrodite, and then instead of Artemis, literally anybody but Artemis probably have been a better pick. Cupid would have been great. I mean, big AoE team fight, that ultimate that they didn't actually have in their comp.
See, at that point in time, I think you would have been lacking a lot of damage. I think if you go with the Artemis or with the Aphrodite, you have to go with the Artemis as well, because then you're building a 4 protect 1 comp at that point in time, right? You have the entire team protect the Artemis because the Artemis is going to be your one carry in that game, and she is going to be dealing all the damage, and she's going to be penta-killing the enemy team if you want to win.
Well, this was, RDO is still a really scary pick in the late game as well, so you don't necessarily have to pick the Artemis. I mean, yes, the 4 protect 1 Artemis is a big source of damage in that situation. But I think, like I said, somebody like a Cupid or somebody like an Onhor, somebody a little bit more safety than the Artemis could have been a better pickup. Even like if you had the Aphrodite, she's making you safe enough with her heals and her ultimate, and just the fact that you do more damage when she's linked to you. So
yeah, to the targets she's kissed, right?
Yeah, so the Artemis is not like a must-have, like a big AoE team fight ultimate like the Cupid ultimate, or a safer pick like the Onhor. Maybe even Shibalanke. I've said it before. To me, there are only 2 true late game hyper carries, and that's Kali and Shibalanke.
I disagree. But yeah, I think this is still the thing you need to do. I think for the Afro to work, you need to get a hyper carry, or to get a carry that is that needs that safety to a certain degree. Otherwise, the pick is sort of wasted still. And I think in that context, I would have liked the Artemis more than in the one that we got her in. But I wouldn't have liked the Afro if it wasn't really paired with one of those picks, picks that needs defending. And yeah, I don't see many other hunters that really fit that role outside of the obvious Amusen Cup, which I think was also banned already at the time. Yeah, it was banned by LG in the second phase.
Yeah, so.
And yeah, but yeah, you're making a point. The Chronos, or the late game focus of one half of the team really in the Chronos and Artemis, was really their downfall, because at that point in time, once they didn't win the early game and get themselves off to elite the RDO and the Circuit, due to pressure being lost in various lanes, right? And at that point in time, they really set themselves up to just having no proper mid game. And if you don't have a proper mid game, it's going to be hard to come back into the game. And yeah, I think you're also right that they should have forced things a bit more. Because once you're on the back foot, you really can't afford to just stand still. You need to take steps ahead, even if they're risky steps. And I think overall that's what led to this loss. With
not just 2/5 of your team being late game focused, the entire damage portion of your team being completely late game focused.
Yeah.
Rough.
Yeah,
really rough. So.
They did manage to find the comeback in the second game, obviously, where again, even more in this game than in the first one, Scream and Benji both didn't look amazing, right? They once again got early up pressure just because this time around LG was running a comp where they had a lot of pressure still in all lanes, really, right? Looking at the RTO Circuit again in the solo side, and then I think it was Barracuda in mid at the start with Baskin on the Awilix, right?
Yeah. And Jeff was in the duo lane by himself. I believe, forgot who Jeff played. Was it on Fafnir, I believe?
It was Ganesh.
Ganesh, yeah, it was Ganesh.
Yeah. And at that point in time, you've got the same issue where the early pressure is really going to be in favor of the other team, and I think that's what we saw happen.
Yeah, exactly. LG, who were the 2 picks that created the pressure in game 1 for LG? Jingwei and Raijin. Who did eUnited have in game 2? Jingwei and Raijin.
Yeah.
So that just goes to that just furthers my point. The game one draft with the Terra second pick, when you could have picked up either one of those two for the pressure that they provide, really could have helped you there. But you know, fast forwarding to game two, Benchy and Scream didn't look great. Didn't look like we're used to seeing them. But with Venenu on the Raijin and Panda Cat on the Jingwei, they didn't have to be.
Yeah. And I think that's the big issue, right? If you look towards the mid game, where both Raijin and Jingwei are a lot stronger than the Chronos and Artemis respectively, I think this is the big difference between the comps. Is you have a mid game with this comp, with the one in the second game. I don't think the early game went too well for them, right? It obviously shouldn't have, looking at what LG drafted with that a Wheelix mid, and with still the two high pressure gods on the other side. Yeah.
I don't know what Baskin was thinking. I mean, if by winning game one, you still have a shot at number one seed in game two, why the hell do you pick out a Wheelix mid lane?
I think it's because you want pressure, honestly.
But you're the thing with the mids, right, is that objective secure that most of them have. Most of them tend to have on their ultimates. A Wheelix doesn't give you that.
Yeah.
So
well, I think then again, does Raijin really have that, right? Raijin has a lot of damage, sure, in the ult. He's not had it. He doesn't have it in a single instance of damage. How does it really match up? The Feather Step damage at like something like level 9 compared to a Raijin damage, or at level 9 when the Feather Step is fully maxed, compared to a Raijin ult at level 9, which is gonna have 2 points or 3 points in it.
Well, that's where Scream's pick on the Nija comes in. You know, Scream ults and it takes up a member in the air that sets up the Raijin ult almost perfectly, and you know, boom, boom, boom. There's a pick dead. It all of a sudden becomes 5v4, and these major map objectives. You know, we've seen a lot of these pro teams not want to take a fight when they're behind at Gold Fury or at Portal Demon. You know, yeah, if they're a man down at Fire Giant, they're going to attempt to protect the Fire Giant in the 5v4, but they're not going to risk the whole game on one Gold Fury.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you're a man down at that point, you know, they might attempt at it, but it's not going to be something that is going to be like an all-out effort to try to steal it away. Like you're pretty much almost guaranteed a Gold Fury in a 5v4 situation.
Yeah, they're gonna have to risk a lot at least to try and get in and steal it, right? And that's already putting them in a bad situation, right? If you I think I've said it before, if you rely on the roll of a dice really to win a situation and to win games, then you're not going to win too many games. And that's what you're really relying on if you're trying to steal an objective. And obviously you're also relying on the other team really screwing it up to a certain extent, which I don't think eUnited was really going to do because of the type of team they are. And yeah.
So we did see it. What was it? This week or last week? An EU team leashed it without resetting it, and the other team picked it up and stole it under like 20% health. So that's a risk that you run. So we've seen it already. Like I don't know who it was, but it happened. I think it was a Burrito. Was it Rival versus Burrito that happened in? Where Volk just picks it up because Burrito just lets it go with less than 20% without leashing it right.
I think it might have been,
right.
I think it might have been between Valence and Elevate, where I think Elevate was doing gold and Valence was rushing to the Portal Demon to try and get it down, but by the time they had it down low enough to really start to try and finish it, Elevate had already showed up and had taken it from them, and they tried to leash it, but it didn't heal up fast enough for them to really be prevented from stealing it away. And that's what Elevate did at that point, I think. Or at least there was a situation like that this week. I remember that exactly. But I can't remember the teams that were involved, really. But yeah, that's the point being, that's the risk you're running when you are behind and try to force an objective. And yeah.
Yeah, so the Nisha pick and the Raijin pick comboing well together off their ultimates. You know, if they get a pick there, they kill somebody and it becomes a 5v4. You know, that dice roll that you were talking about on the stealing the objective away gets harder. Like it's a bigger dice roll. It's a bigger risk.
Yeah.
And so
you're not rolling a d6 anymore. You're suddenly rolling a d10.
Yeah, and you're not taking that risk if you're a pro team, and it's not worth trying to get in and still go Fury if you're only two other members. So it's not a risk a lot of the pro teams will take.
Yeah, so looking at this set, I've got one question I want to ask you, really. What does this second game tell us? And I'm talking about Scream and Benji both not having a great game in that one, but them still being able to win it off of the carrying done by Venenu and done by Pandacat. What does this tell us about eUnited? Is this a good sign? Is it a bad sign that they lost the matchup that we think they were strongest in? Or is it a good sign that they can win games off of the back of the players that maybe aren't their main carries usually?
It's a good sign. We said this last week when Pandacat really stepped up because was it game 2 last week against who did they play? Noble? No, it wasn't Noble.
Let me check. I will check for you if you give me 10 seconds. It was
Vigilant. Yeah, where they didn't really get off to the best start. Weekend had picked up first blood on Benji because of a gank, and it wasn't really a strong start on that side of the map. Pandacat carried on the other side of the map, and so it's a good thing that we see that if eUnited is not necessarily winning that side of the map, that solo lane side of the map, which, let's be honest, they're going to be favored in a lot of the time, that if they do make mistakes over there and they're not off to the start that they want to be off on, then Venenu and Pandacat and Polar Bear Mike are just as good as the other two when they have to be.
Yeah.
This is probably the best roster eUnited has had. And that's going back to even with Pain Divion and Chaos on the team. I think this is the best roster because, like I said, if in Chaos wasn't playing like the Chaos of old, the Season 2 Chaos or the Season 3 Spring Split Chaos, where you don't want to give him Giannis because the game's over if he gets to pick Giannis. He wasn't playing like that. And he wasn't really a carry of the team. Venenu has proven that he can do that. Polar Bear's Mike leadership is probably second to none right now, at least in North America. He's probably the best leader in North America right now. Give Pain Divion another split or two with this Vigilant roster, you might see that change, but for right now, Polar Bear Mike is the best leader in North America. And, Pandacat is proven time and time again over multiple splits that he can carry a team.
Yeah.
He can carry from that position. So there's like, it's a good look for the team at least. It's not, you don't really have to rely solely on Benji or solely on Screen. That if they're not having the effect that you expect them to have, you've got great players in other positions that can really step up. You know, what did we say about energy last year, right? Like, adapting wasn't having a game or wasn't having a good game. You know, Emilito or Yemen would step up and carry that game, and they'd win that game. So,
yeah, I think that's a strength of the roster right now, is that they have essentially 4 players that are able to carry individually, and the bedrock that PBM sort of puts down, because he's a support, he can't carry. Poor supports, man. And yeah, I think there's good things, positive things to take away from this week. As you said, that entire theme with them having carry potential outside of Benchy and Scream, like we saw already last week, is a good sign for the roster overall. And yeah, I'm excited to see what they can do against EU. If they are going to play against EU either at Super Regionals or in the wildcard bracket if they lose, or at Worlds, because they're going to get to either one, right? And yeah, I'm looking forward to those games that they're going to have there, because I really want to see how this team stacks up against EU. I think you make a good point that Venenu right now is in a better form than Chaos was towards the end of his career and his playtime with eUnited. And it's not something I would have really expected to be saying right now at this point in time, like a couple of weeks ago. But it looks like it has been the case, and that deserves sort of a massive shout out to him as well, to Venenu. And yeah, I think that is really all there is to say about this set, right? Please tell me it is. Do you have anything more?
no, nothing more. I mean, I hope we get a 5-game set at Super Regionals. That's all I can say is I hope we get a 5-game set at Super Regionals. And
yeah,
I mean, I said this earlier about the EU, where Obey and Dig are the 2 best teams in EU, but the gap is a lot smaller between second, third, and fourth, or first and second, and third and fourth, than it is in North America, where LG and eUnited have really separated themselves by a wide margin over Space Station and Trifecta.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's very likely that these 2 teams meet each other in the finals of Super Regionals, and yeah, if they do, it could easily go to a 5-game set. But that is a discussion for another time. Right now, as you already mentioned, the 2 other teams that are going to Super Regionals out of NA are going to be Space Station Gaming and Trifecta, as I think 3rd and 4th seed respectively. Do I have that right?
Yes, Space Station is 3rd, Trifecta is 4th.
And yeah, they obviously played their head-to-head matchup also this week. And yeah, they split among each other, which left Space Station ahead of them in the overall standings. And obviously, as far as seeding for Super Regionals goes now. So yeah, what happened in that set overall?
The thing
Go into
with
a bit
this,
more detail.
the thing that stands out to me with this split is we didn't get a clear answer who was 3rd and who was 4th. Because Trifecta dominated in game 1, and then Space Station dominated in game 2. So in the head-to-head matchup, both of them have dominated the other, and we haven't really. It doesn't give us an answer as to who's that 3rd team. Standing-wise, yes, Space Station had the better split, so they're up. But in a head-to-head matchup, we just don't know who's better, and that's kind of troubling to me, because if we don't know who's better in between the 2 of them, and they both fall down into that wild card bracket, which we expect them to, how do either of these 2 teams beat teams like Rival or Elevate, or maybe even Energy or Balance to take
mate.
a spot?
Mate, I've got an answer for you about that.
They don't.
They don't.
I would agree with you right now. I would wholly on the fact that Homie Faye is on Space Station, and if Trifecta doesn't find a way to get some sort of pressure from Kiki, then that's not a good look for Trifecta either. But
yeah,
in this set, in game one, we talked about it on Sunday during the middle of it. Zapman was at times 5 levels behind Snoopy.
yes,
Don't know what happened.
Had a terrible game.
Don't know what happened, but if Zapman is showing this much inconsistency, and you don't know what Homie Faye you're going to get, but history shows that we're going to get the bad Homie Faye at LAN, you're really putting all your hopes on Scary D's performance at LAN. And we know Scary D can be dominant at LAN, but is he dominant enough at LAN to make up for a inconsistent Zapman and a no-show of a jungler in Homie Faye?
Well, I think it depends on which Scary shows up, right? We've already seen different iterations of Scary D, sort of. When we look at the one big tournament where he was massive and where he had a massive amount of success, we're looking at the Season 3 World Championship, and I think if he shows up in that form, they might have a chance against each other, but they're not playing each other. They're playing Luminosity or eUnited, right? Trifecta going up against eUnited and Space Station facing Luminosity. And in those matchups, it's going to be even harder. And then when you go into the wildcard bracket...
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking not so much about the eUnited or the LG matchups against... I'm talking about the wild card. That's what I'm looking at more.
Yeah, I'm getting to the wildcard bracket right now. Don't be so impatient, man. Yeah, when you look at wildcards, I think it's going to be a tough matchup for either of those teams, regardless of who shows up and regardless of how good Scary D is, because they are going to be facing EU teams, and they're going to be facing a team like a Valence or like an Energy or like, and some, like at least one out of Rival, Obey, and Dig, potentially two. And Elevate as well, which we haven't seen on LAN yet, but which have looked great online. And if that is the case, it's going to be a tough task, and they're going to struggle, I think. And I would be very surprised if an NA team makes it out of the gauntlet this year, just because of we're going to have two really good EU teams there anyway, right? We're either going to have, as I said, we're going to have most likely Rival there, and we're going to have Valence or Energy there. Those are two teams that are going to be extremely hard to beat. If Elevate shows up at LAN in anything close to the form they had online, they're going to be hard to beat as well.
See, that's what brings me back to my point about Space Station. Say Zapman does perform better and he's more consistent. Is he and Scary D enough to make up for Homie Faye? If Homie Faye continues to not show up at LANs, are they good enough to beat a struggling, maybe a down Valence squad, or a Elevate team that is inconsistent, or an Energy team that is inconsistent, or are they good enough to beat them with just those two players alone? I don't know, and it's going to be that much harder if Zapman is 5 levels behind, say, Funballer, or 5 levels behind Votes,
or Jermaine.
Like,
Zapman or Emilito.
Or Emilito. Zapman one of the best hunters to ever play the game. His recent struggles with his inconsistency. That man shows up, and they get a performance out of Scary D like he did have at the Season 3 Worlds. I still don't know if that's enough to overcome a Homie Faye disappearance.
And I still don't know if it's enough to overcome a LAN rival, an Energy that is also looking good, or a Valence that is also looking good, or an Elevate that is looking good, right? And that is where I have most of my question marks is, even if they show up in a good form, which I think is not impossible, and even if Homie FA shows up in a decent form, in a halfway decent form, right? If he doesn't disappear completely and instead is like at least half there, I think they're still going to struggle, regardless of what else is really the case. And that's what makes me worried for the Space Station roster. I think at the start of the split, when you looked at this roster and when you thought that LG wouldn't be as good as they are now, and that eUnited wouldn't be as good as they are now, I think they would have had a decent chance at LAN, just because they have more carry potential now than they had. Scary D can pop off at LAN, as we said, and Satman can pop off, period. If the other two teams in NA, the two at the top in Luminosity and eUnited weren't looking as good as they are, they would have a chance of making it through directly, but right now I have a hard time imagining them making it through in general, just because they are going to have to go through the wildcards bracket.
And then looking at Trifecta. Switching over to Trifecta right now, I like the roster. I like the addition of Aurora to this roster. It just seems at times, this split, that their uniqueness of having Aurora and Kiki, into a certain extent, Sino Short, playing these eager picks, the picks that are not necessarily top in their roles, but are something that they can pull out and throw other teams through a loop, much like Elevate can do. The difference between Elevate and Trifecta is it seems like Trifecta is trying to force the issue, and that they might be running these comps like the Raijin jungle.
Don't remind me.
Too much. It's too much. Like they're trying to force their uniqueness to work, and it's not working.
Yeah, I can see where that's coming from. And then again, if you look at the games that they have won, and I think this is a good example, their one set this week against Space Station, they won with Afro mid. Right, and that is a unique pick. That's not something that a lot of other people are running right now. So uniqueness, it can hurt you. It has hurt Eager in the past, right? When they did perform well against the NA opposition, just because they had sort of figured out ways in order to deal with the NA opposition, but then they struggled against EU precisely because they had no way of, or they weren't used to dealing with the EU comps really. And their comps, just the ones that they usually would run against NA, didn't end up working out as well against EU as they did against NA. I think that can hurt you, and I think that can hurt Trifecta, but overall I think they need to be unique right now. I think that is their biggest strength. I think Kiki on a normal solo laner, or on a solo laner where they are really expecting it, where it's just a fair matchup essentially between him and the other solo laner, is going to have a hard time doing as well as that other solo laner.
Well, I see it like this. Elevate and Trifecta, they're the unique teams, right? They're the ones running the comps that aren't necessarily normal, right? They're bringing something different to the league.
Yeah.
The difference I see is it's Elevate is making it work, and they're not trying to force it. They're just bringing it out when they feel like they can win with it. Trifecta's not winning with it, and they're trying to force the issue of trying to be too unique. There is a situation where you being too unique, and it makes them an interesting team to watch. Yes, but if something is not working, don't overforce it.
Well, see, I think the big difference between those two rosters is that Trifecta, this split, haven't really proven that they can win against good teams with the sort of vanilla team. Whereas Elevate has won games with normal comps against big opposition, and if you can do that, if you can manage to make those work, then I think you're going to be more confident to switch it up between those two options, and that by itself can already catch people off guard. And I think Trifecta, due to the fact that they haven't found much success with the normal comps and only really with the Jank stuff, are putting themselves in a bad position. Again, I will draw the comparison to Eager, where Eager only played Jank stuff. They didn't play vanilla comps. They only played their weird stuff, and it ended up hurting them because they weren't able to switch back to a normal comp and to win games on a normal comp. I think it's a similar issue with Trifecta again.
I agree. I really do. I think if you're not winning with the vanilla picks and you're trying to go jank and you're not winning with your jank picks, or you're not finding the amount of success you're hoping for with the jank picks, then you're hurting yourself to a point.
Yeah, and I think you're hurting yourself anyway, because once someone has figured out your jank stuff, they are going to counter it, and if someone counters your stuff, you are basically fucked.
Yes. And I see doing what we did with Space Station and matching Trifecta up with the four possible teams that they can play in, EU team that they can play in that wild card round. The only way I give Trifecta a leg up on a Space Station is their uniqueness, is their less than normal picks in the solo lane. Don't put Sinosure on Raijin. That's just a no-no. Hurricane has been able, Hurricane has shown that he can play multiple different types of characters, from the hunters into the mid, the mages, the hyper carry mages, like I believe he played Kronos a couple of times. He does have a Morgan, Raijin. Hurricane has shown that he's a good enough mid laner to play these multiple things. Aurora, I'm comfortable with putting Aurora on a warrior support if he wants to play a warrior support. And then Snoopy can play whatever the hell he wants. Snoopy's that good.
Yeah.
Snoopy wants to play Vulcan ADC, go for it. He's really good, and he can, he has proven himself enough times that, give him what he asked for.
I would like to see some Season 1 flashbacks to the Vulcan ADC. That would be very enjoyable.
I think we saw it in the summer. I think he ran it in the summer when that was pretty much. They had pretty much wrapped up a spot at DreamHack. So.
Yeah, but that doesn't count. Please. I want to see him run it in a game where it's an important one, and I want to see him do something with it. Hopefully.
In these matchups against eUnited or EU competition, like I said, the only advantage I'm giving to Trifecta over Space Station is that they are so flexible, that they are so unique, and the teams not named Elevate, when Elevate pulls out their unique picks, have shown that they struggle against these unique picks, that they can really affect the way that these EU teams want to play.
Yeah, and I think that's the key to success.
Talent-wise, the rosters between these two teams, the talent is very much in favor of Space Station.
Yeah, and I think the talent...
Trifecta gets the edge in just being very unique. And I'm overusing that word, but there's really nothing else I can use. Weird, strange, diabolical.
So would you say that unique is a very unique word?
Now you're trying too hard.
Damn it. Anyway, yeah, I think I agree with that, honestly. I think if you're trying to match an EU team head-to-head, it's going to be hard because EU has a lot of talent, and EU teams generally have a fairly solid foundations, right? They play very foundationally solid Smite. That is going to be hard to match up to just if you're also trying to play the same style. And I think they're throwing in Chang where they can't play the way they normally do is a good recipe to try and counter that, because throwing curveballs like LG did basically by first picking Ratatoska, right? Throwing these types of curveballs against teams that have their distinct style and the curveballs sort of work against their distinct style can be very powerful, and I think if they manage to do that, there's a good chance they can, or a better chance at least, that they can win. It's just going to be hard, I think, to come up with something that is going to really surprise EU, because EU is going to have a lot of time to prepare for this LAN as well, right? We've still got several weeks to go. Yeah, go ahead.
And that's where I see the most difference between eUnited and LG and Trifecta and Space Station. eUnited and LG, I've seen so far proof that they are skilled enough. They have the game plans, and that they can match up against these EU teams in a head-to-head, straight-up fight. And the best of five might favor the EU teams, but they're not it's not going to be completely one-sided like it would be in the past. Space Station and Trifecta, however, in a head-to-head matchup where it's all traditional, what we're used to seeing, the meta picks, I'm favoring the EU teams over both of these teams, unless they can get the EU teams out of their comfort, and force them to really do something they're not comfortable with. And that's where I see the difference between the top of NA and the Trifecta and Space Station.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is a big point, is that Trifecta and Space Station, I think based on raw skill, are going to struggle against the EU. And I think both LG and eUnited can match up to that raw skill.
And that's the point I was making too.
Yeah, I understand it. And yeah, I'm just looking forward as well to NA versus EU matches again.
Like completely on raw skill alone, eUnited and LG can match up with Obey, Rival, and Dignitas. If Space Station and Trifecta match up with Obey, Rival, and Dignitas, they have to do something that throws those three teams off their games if they want to win.
Yeah, or Space Station just has to have every member they on their team just completely pop off, with Homie FA showing us best Season 4 Split 2, trundling online, but on land this time around, with, who else is on the roster, I forgot, with Scary D having a World Season 3 performance, with Andy playing the best mid he's ever played, and with Satman just rolling back the years and playing like Season 0 Satman. But that's
and
not
we haven't
happen.
really talked about Anister and Jigs yet, but they're not the players that you want to talk you're going to talk about. Anister and Jigs are mechanically amazing players, and they do their jobs every week.
Yeah, I think that's the main reason. That's the main reason.
They're consistent. That's the main reason. I'm predicting that you're going to say that's the main reason we don't talk about them.
Yeah,
because they don't really stand out to us as doing something completely stupid. They're just really good, and they're quiet.
Yeah, we talk about the question marks that we have looking forward to sets, right? Andy and Chicks are not a question mark. They are going to show up. I'm convinced of that. It's the rest of the team around them that has to show up in order for Space Station to find success. And those are the question marks that we have, and yeah, that's why we're talking about them.
That man can't be 5 levels behind. Scary D has to play like he did at Worlds, and
yeah,
Homie Faye just has to show up.
Yeah,
he can't get off at the airport. Like, you have to find your way to High Res Studios, Homie Faye.
Yeah, see, you have to actually. What's that? You just confused me with that airport joke. Damn it. Oh God, let me think. You have to. I know what I was gonna say. Very few players are in a good position when they're 5 levels behind.
Which is why I say Zatman cannot be 5 levels behind.
Yeah, and it's not Zatman exclusive. Just.
I'm convinced Homie Faye gets off the plane at the airport, looks around and sees like a Dunkin' Donuts, and then goes to get a donut, and turns around and his team is gone, and he's just wandering around. He spends the entire week wandering around the airport looking for the rest of his team instead of just going to High Res Studios to play.
See, I question that, because have you looked at Homie FA? That guy's tiny.
Yeah, he's not eating Dunkin' Donuts. Okay, maybe he sees a Starbucks. So he's getting coffee, he turns around and nobody's there.
Like, he has to barista sort of draw something really elaborate on the cup instead of a name.
Yeah.
And so that's why it takes him so long. That's why the rest of the team's gone.
Well, we got one roster change to talk about this week.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick.
I heard about it on Wednesday of last week, and this is Mirage and Grave out. And by the time I went to try to find out what was going on, I couldn't find anything on it. But it did happen. Mirage is on Vigilant now. Grave has left the team, though I don't know if he was kicked or if it was for personal reasons. Because I couldn't, like I said, when I went to look for it, the tweet from Grave was already taken down.
Yeah. And it's just weird. I don't get the change if it's for performance reasons, right? Grave didn't strike me as the one player that was poor on Vigilant. There wasn't really no player that struck me as that sort of thing. And I don't value Mirage very highly, right? He was not good in the summer when he was playing for Flashpoint. Obviously, he was playing for Flashpoint, so he wasn't
Nobody's
good.
looking good in that situation. Yeah, I agree. If it's based solely on performance, I don't know why you make the Mirage switch for Grave. Because it wasn't like this Vigilant team was struggling. Yeah, they weren't finding a lot of wins compared to the top of NA. But it wasn't like that they were completely getting blown out. They were in most of their games, and most of their games were competitive. It's just a young team in that situation not knowing how to end the game and win and really finish off the game. And with time, that comes around. So, again, if it's for personal reasons, if Grave is leaving because he's got personal reasons, like if something's wrong, God forbid something's wrong with somebody in his family, I hope it's not. If it's just like a disagreement, like a major something that the team couldn't get by, I understand that as well. But if it's solely performance-wise, this makes no sense in the world.
Yeah. I don't see a way in which Mirage is better than Grave overall, and especially I don't see a way in which Mirage has more potential than Grave. So I think it's a real shame that he's not going to be playing in the SPL anymore. We were talking about him a lot, hyping him up to a certain degree. He hasn't shown the same performances that he did in the Challenger circuit in the SPL, but he had potential, right? And settling into the role would have made him better. I'm very convinced of that. The fact that we're not going to be able to see that, it's just a bit sad, honestly.
For most part, Vigilant was just a young team that they needed to learn how to finish off games, and like I said, that comes with time and experience.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Elevate. That's why Elevate is fourth in EU right now.
Yeah.
It was a young team and they were struggling, but the games weren't necessarily blowouts. And over time, they learned to win as a team, and now they're sitting at fourth in EU. Vigilant could have Vigilant could have followed that same path if given the time. And Grave could have been a big part of that team. So.
Yeah, I don't know what else there is.
Kind of a head scratch. It's kind of just a head scratcher. That's all you can say. I mean, it's like, why make this move if it's just based solely on performance? And we said the tweet was taken down. I haven't read or seen anything from Pain to Beyond or Day to Remember. Like the team, the roster is quiet. There hasn't been too much news on it. And Grave had taken down the tweet longer, or the twit longer, or whatever, however you want to say the phrase, had taken it down when I went to go look for it. Oh.
Yeah. Something else I really quickly want to talk about before we head into the discussion of the Gauntlet and into the MVPs for this week as well, because we still need to do those, right? I would quickly want to talk about what our predictions were for who was making Super Regionals this year, and what actually ended up being the case, right? So I'm just going to read you down. We have a document as well for that. I made one. You can go check it out.
Yeah.
And obviously, way back before week one, we were predicting the same teams out of Europe to go to Super Regionals. And it was Stig at number 1, Energy at number 2, Obey at number 3, Rival at number 4, and Valence at number 5. And yeah, well, Obey looked better than expected, and Energy looked a lot worse than expected. Rival, we had them 4th, not 3rd, but yeah. Rival, they're about where we expected them to be. Valence was basically spot on, assuming they actually win the Gauntlet. We should have done this after the Gauntlet, damn it, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, basically switch Elevate and Energy, and there you have it.
Yeah, except Elevate's not 2nd, they're 3rd. Or no, they're 4th. But yeah, they're one team we didn't predict to make it.
Not so much standing wise, I'm talking as who we picked, the 5 teams we picked to make it.
Yeah.
Just switch out the one team, and we're good.
Yeah, that is the notable absence out of our lists, is Elevate, because they were a big question mark coming into the split, right? With them kicking Melissa, going for Death Panther instead, and then managing only to find a split in week 1 against Burrito, obviously, with us up, but still.
And neither of us expected them to play this well with Death Panther.
Yeah, I think
Death
no one did.
Panther, Death Panther has been a good addition to the team. Been a very solid
Yeah.
addition to the team. Nobody would have expected that. Just nobody would have saw that coming. But yeah. So
Yeah, if you had told
we
me
had
at the
our
start of the
reasons.
split that Elevate with 2-0 Energy and would make it to Super Regionals, why Energy wouldn't make it directly, I would have wanted you to give me some of what you had before you said that. Because it must have been good
The only
stuff.
thing I have is a good bottle of Jack Daniels number 7.
Well, I would take some of that as well, man. Yeah, anyway, on the North American side, we were obviously, outside of the order of teams, we were spot on from what it looks right now. We had a Space Station Trifecta, eUnited, Luminosity making it directly. Ended up being the case, just a bit, well, in a different order. And we had Gatekeepers as 5th, and Gatekeepers now obviously Vigilant. Still, we were spot on there, Sabo. You know, we are sometimes pretty good. Only sometimes, though.
Well, out of the top 5 teams in both regions, we only have one mistake. I think that's a pretty good percentage. We're 90% right.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to MVPs, honestly. We need to do MVPs, but I have none prepared. Do you have yours prepared?
I don't really, because it was kind of a weird week.
Okay, let's say the first name that pops into your head for the EU side.
Probably Captain Twig.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I'm just gonna join you with that one. They were the only team that had like really good success this week, honestly. Maybe a rival player, but I don't think there was anyone who really stood out on that roster.
I mean, yeah, I could maybe give it to Cherio or maybe even Death Panther, but because again, who expected them to take a game off of Obey? But they did. So
Yeah.
But Captain Twig, I think, was the most consistent performer on the best team. And I think Captain Twig is the best choice this week for EU.
Okay. Now I'm gonna pick a random name on the NA side. Okay. I need to think real quick. I'm just gonna go with Panda Cat, honestly. He looked good this week, didn't he?
Yeah, with the one game against LG on the Artemis not withstanding, I think he played really well against Vigilant on Thursday, and then in game 2 against eUnited, he played or against Luminosity, he and Venenu carried the team. So yeah, Pentagat's a good option as well. I would agree. Yeah, I'm going to say Panicat is the MVP. I could give it to Venenu because he did play well on Thursday. He did pick Aphrodite into a team with a Circuit and I believe an Odin on it, and they still somehow won. Kudos to him, but yeah, Panda Cat was probably the better option.
Yeah. So yeah, those are our MVPs as well for this week. And now let's head into the last point of discussion. I think we're gonna make this a bit quick. Let's talk about the gauntlets. Well, I guess the main talking point is who do we expect to go through, and we already sort of did that for the EU side, right? Or are you expecting any other surprises on the EU side?
A quick roster for Victoria's Secret was the Challenger Cup team. This was the Challenger Cup team we were both really high on. After the after relegations, we thought they could be a good team.
Yeah. Well,
It's very much
they almost made it into the SPL, right? After all.
yeah, they were the third team in the tiebreaker. Like, if you remember the tiebreaker between the Burrito Poppies and Victoria's Secret, they were the team on the outside. They were the third place team.
Yeah.
But it was still a tie between those bottom three teams. But the roster is very much the same, except for the support. And I believe it was Lance Wolf in the Gauntlet is now Meowick or Maywick. I don't know. But it's still Spudio, Mr. Stefan Frostiak, and Julio 69. But except for Lance Wolf, it's Meowick. On North American side, Salsa Squadron. There's a couple names that you will recognize, and then there's most of them you will not. In the ADC role, the captain of Sobs, the hunter that played on Flashpoint. Sheikah is the mid. You'll also recognize him from Flashpoint. Support is Mineral. The jungle is Young Lad, and the solo is Brah. So,
those names are brilliant. Young Lad and Brah.
yeah. I mean, at least the 7 and 8 matchup, or the Challenger Cups teams against the 7 or the 8 C teams, that should be an interesting matchup. I don't really expect either of the Challenger Cup teams to make it past 7. I could possibly see Victoria's Secret beating the Poppies, but not beating Energy.
Yeah.
But I would still give the Poppies an edge over Victoria's Secret. I'd still give Burrito an edge over Victoria's Secret. But the way they played in the relegations at the beginning of Split, I think that they can realistically beat the Poppies and Burrito. Going up against Energy, though, that's where I draw the line on them. Salsa Squadron. What happened to ALG? Nobody knows. They are a better team than what their record shows, and they're a better team than what they performed as. But ALG is they're not Flashpoint, but they're maybe envious of the Fall Split or of the Spring Split of season 3. You don't know why they're losing with the roster that they have, but they are.
Yeah.
So Salsa Squadron beating Allegiance, okay, that's realistically an option because ALG is just playing like crap right now. This is a whole new Cryptic roster, but at the Combine, according to a lot of the sites that I've looked at, this exact Salsa Squadron team beat this exact Cryptic team in a best of 3 at the Combine. So they could beat the Salsa Squadron can beat Cryptic. I don't know with Vedium and Final K if that's playing like they are right now, if Salsa Squadron can actually take a game off of them at this time. So
yeah, I think both. I think on the NA side, they're going to struggle a bit more to try and get in and try to beat those bottom 2 teams, just because I see them as having still a bit more of a foundation than the EU teams potentially, and we haven't seen much from Salsa Squadron, right? Even though they did beat Cryptic, apparently in the Combine. I haven't seen enough from them, and they don't look like a team with enough potential to me that I would realistically give them a big shot at trying to beat those bottom 2 SPL teams right now.
I agree. I think beating ALG is like I said, with the way ALG is playing, I think that's a realistic, maybe a 50-50 shot at doing it. But we're going up to this against this Cryptic team, which I think this Cryptic team might make it to the finals at this gauntlet, and I think Cryptic is my dark horse team right now in that North American gauntlet. So for Salsa Squadron to beat them, I don't expect it to happen. Like I said, I think Cryptic makes it to the finals.
Yeah, I think with how the teams ahead of them had looked, it's not that unlikely, right? Even Vigilant has struggled a lot, and especially Noble as well. I can see Cryptic winning best of threes over either of those teams, honestly, and I give them a decent shot at making it to the wildcard brackets of Super Regionals.
Especially with Mirage in and Brave out, yeah.
Yeah, that as well. Because obviously synergy is still a thing, and they still don't have as much synergy with Mirage as they would have had with Grave, since they've played with him for at least a split now, I think. Or they had played with him for at least a split in the Challenger Cup.
I'm going to say something bold here, but I really think that it's realistically what we would have seen. If this was the roster that this team started off the split with, I think they're going to Super Regionals as the 4th seed.
Yeah, they might have.
I think
honestly.
I think this Cryptic roster is that good. But they only played half a season with this roster, and so they found them 7th and relegated out instead of going to Super Regionals.
Yeah. I think that would have been a definite possibility with how the rest of NA has looked, right? We talked about Trifecta, how they have looked very shaky, and behind them, looking at it now, Vigilant and the rest of the squads weren't really able to compete with them. Whereas Cryptic, they seemed like a team that could potentially battle a team like a Trifecta or like a Space Station even. And they could have made it through, yeah, I think, if they had played the full split with this roster. But obviously the entire ordeal with Vivian and this old team happened when they all got dropped after week 2, and then Vivian himself got dropped or kicked himself in asterisks or whatever after week 3 as well. So having only 2 weeks and I think even only 2 sets left to play has seriously hurt this Cryptic roster, and they managed to find good points within those sets, but overall it just clearly wasn't enough. But obviously we have the Gauntlet. The Gauntlet is their chance to make it still somewhere good, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happens.
And I do like Noble as well. With Moswell joining the team, I think he made the team better than what they were if they didn't have Stealth. Because with Stealth, I think I made the prediction, with Stealth, this probably is a team we see at Super Regionals as well.
Yeah.
Without Stealth and somebody other than Moswell, I think this team is relegated out. Moswell has been a good addition to this team. And Skeledon is a coin flip jungler. He's really good or he's really bad. When he's great, when he's good, the team is great. But when he's bad, the team is just horrible. And that inconsistency, I think, is what gives Cryptic the edge. And though I said Mirage is a downgrade when you think of who he's replacing, I think we both know not to bet against Pain Divion. And so my pick for NA, I don't know your pick, but my pick for NA, simply because they have Pain Divion as their leader, is Vigilant.
This is a hard one. Like, honestly, I think I'm gonna go with Cryptic. I think Vigilant has not evolved enough in this split that I think it justifies them getting that spot over Cryptic. Cryptic looked like a more solid unit to me. Vigilant, the games they've won off of objective control, and I think you can find success with that against Cryptic, but if it's a normal game where you aren't finding objectives that you shouldn't find, I don't see how the Vigilant roster matches up to the Cryptic one.
I like the Cryptic roster better than I do the Vigilant roster. Yes. With Graves, though, I think Vigilant is a better team than Cryptic. But without Grave and Mirage in, it favors Cryptic. But like I said, I'm not willing to bet against Pain Devion. We made that mistake in Season 2 against the Envious roster, where they beat Envious in 5 games. That was the roster that at the time was the best in North America, with Incon and Allied and Kiki and Weekend Insight or Cyclone Spin. And Pain and a bunch of nobodies beat them. So I'm not betting against Pain.
I think the circumstances were different, though. Like, honestly. Circumstances.
Not betting against Pain to be on.
I am. Come on, bring it on, Pain. Show me what you got.
But we both see Cryptic and Vigilant reaching the finals, right? Well, Vigilance is in the final.
Yeah.
They're the top team in the Gauntlet. They're in the final.
I would
both see Cryptic.
I would say I definitely see Vigilant making the finals, yes. Cryptic, probably as well. Like, unless Noble shows up massively, there's almost no other way. Unless Noble or Allegiance just...
If Noble can win the Gauntlet, if Skeleton shows up and has an amazing performance, and has an amazing day.
Yeah.
If we get the bad Skeleton, though, I don't think Walrus and Wowie and Moswell can overcome a poor performance from Skeleton.
Yeah, and there's just so little to suggest right now from what we've seen the split that Skila is going to show up. So I'm not buying in.
And let's say this about Skeleton. I think we've seen him at his best, and he's really good when he's at his best. And we've seen him at his worst, and he's really bad at his worst.
Yeah.
So, which one of those two show up? If it's the really good one, I will put Noble. I will put my foot in my mouth, and I will put Noble into Super Regionals. If we don't get that Skeleton, though, I'm not betting against Pain to be on, even though I love this Cryptic roster. Well, Gino and Shadowshare and Sam Stalker are awesome players, and Final K and Vedium can carry them. They are great players in their own right. They can carry this team, but I'm still not betting against Pain to be on.
I still am. But yeah.
If Cryptic makes it, yay, I love it. I'm hoping that they play well at the wild card. But as of right now, I'm not betting against Pain Devion. There's nothing you can say that make me.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I see you're not a risk taker, and I respect that.
I just know I've just seen enough of the SPL not to bet against Pain Devion. Because even when you think his team is not going to do anything, they end up being like 2 at Worlds and top seed at DreamHack going together.
Yeah.
2-0 LG in the first week of the split. The backdoor Odin Cage, and everybody else not with LG not even in the race. Week 1 of season 3, spring split. Tom Clancy tactics, as allies called it.
Yeah. Anyway, we've got to end the show here. My headset is losing power.
We got to make one last thing. We got to say EUC. We got to predict an EUT. Are you going with Energy or are you going with Valence?
I'm going with Energy all the way, man. Valence has been too inconsistent for me. Like they've been basically as inconsistent as energy, and in that case, then I have to go with energy.
I'm going with energy as well, with an asterisk.
If adapting shows up,
Adapting's that asterisk.
yeah, that makes sense.
I will give energy EU's wild card. Yes.
Charging battery.
Okay.
Oh, I heard that. The battery's low. You better.
Yeah, I
Wrap us
know.
up.
It's going to be on stream, man, or on the video. That's gonna suck. Anyway, do you have anything left to say? Any shout outs you want to give before we end the show?
No, I do not.
It's too bad, man. Anyway, I need to find the notes again. Just in case I don't. I need to do this perfectly.
20 episodes in, and you don't have it memorized.
Yeah, I don't. I'm a terrible host, man. Anyway, that was it from the Tuesday Night Smite podcast for this week. If you enjoyed this episode, please smash that fucking like button. Is that good?
I'll allow it. We'll have to work on it, but I'll allow it.
On YouTube or SoundCloud or wherever else you're watching this. You can follow us on Twitter, you can follow us on SoundCloud, you can follow us on YouTube if you want to be notified whenever new episodes come out on any platform of your choosing. And yeah, thank you all for being here with us this week. Thank you, Sabo, for putting on this show with me every week. And I'm going to watch Switzerland play now, if they're still playing. Yeah, with that in mind, good night, good Smite.